Hello guys, this is part 68 of SQL Server tutorial. In this video, we will discuss optional parameters in SQL Server stored procedure. We will be using this table, TBL employee, for this demo. TBL employee for this demo. Here is the SQL script to create and populate this table with some sample data. Now I want to write a stored procedure. And this stored procedure should allow me to search employee within this table TBL employee by their name, email, age and gender. So first let's go ahead and create that procedure. So create proc. SP search, and then the name of the stored procedure. Let's call it SP search. Employees. Employee. And we want to be able to search by name, email, age and gender. So let's go ahead and have 4 parameters. The name is of type nvarchar. Similarly, let's add parameters for email, gender and age. Email is also of type nvarchar. Gender is also of the same type. But age is of type integer. So let's change the data type to int. As begin, and now let's implement the body of the stored procedure. Now we want to select all the rows and column from TPL employee table. Now we want to select all the rows and columns from TBL employee. TBL employee table, but we need to apply the where clause. Because we want to be able to filter by the provided name, email, gender, and age. So where name equals at name whatever the value that is present within that at name parameter, and gender equals at gender. Email equals at email. Age equals at age. All right. So let's go ahead and create this stored procedure. So let's go ahead and create that stored procedure. Yeah, it should be employees, not employee. Okay. You should write it as employee stored procedure. Okay. Now let's create and now let's go ahead and create this stored procedure. Now we have the stored procedure. SP search employee created. So let me create it. So we have the stored procedure SP search employee is created, and this procedure expect these 4 parameters. And this stored procedure expects these 4 parameters. All these parameters at the moment are mandatory. Look at this. If I try to execute this procedure without supplying value for any of the parameters, So if I try to execute this procedure without supplying value for any of the parameter, look at it, what is going to happen. You know, we have an error. So let me first execute it. Look at it, what is going to happen. You know, we have an error. Procedure function employs expects parameters at name which was not supplied. So we need to supply value for all of these four parameters, all of these parameters. So here parameters are mandatory. So how do we make them optional? To make them optional, all we need to do is specify default values for these parameters. So here I am going to specify null. So here I am going to specify null. As the default value for name. Okay, but you can actually specify any default value that would make sense. You may, according to the requirement of your application. You know according to the requirement of your application. So I am going to specify null as the default value for all of the parameters. For all of the parameters. Now let's alter this. Now let's alter this. Execute. Now look at this. When I execute this stored procedure, look at this. At the moment I am not supplying values for any of the, look at this, I am not supplying values for any of the parameters. But look at that, I don't get any data. But look at that, I don't get any data. That is fine, we will fix that in just a bit. But at least we don't get that error. You know, that name parameter requires value, or email parameter requires value, or we don't have those errors because these parameters are optional, because we have specified default values for them. So when you specify default values and then if you don't supply values for these parameters, and when you execute the stored procedure, at execution time, the default values will be used. Okay, Now why are we not getting data? Now why we are not getting data? Because we don't have name, gender, email. We don't have name, gender, email, age. Where these column values are null, and that is the reason why we don't get the data. But then if you want to return all the rows from the table, if we don't supply values for these parameters, then we need to modify our where clause. So I'm going to include a condition here, where name equals at name, where name equals at name, or at name is null. Okay, similarly, let's go ahead and add the same condition for the rest of the parameter that we have here. So gender equals at gender, or at gender parameters itself is null. At gender parameter itself is null. Similarly, where email equals at email or at email is null. Age equals at age or at age parameter is null. So basically, if one of these condition is true, that is fine. So let's alter this procedure. So let's alter this procedure. Execute this now. Look at this. At the moment, we are not supplying value for any of the parameters, but I get all the rows. So if I execute this, at the moment we are not supplying values for any of the parameters, but I get all the rows, because we don't want the filter to be applied if I don't supply values for the parameters. Now let's say I want to get all the male employees, then let's specify the value for this gender parameter. So gender parameter, is going to have a value of male. So now if I execute this, we should only get male employees from the table. Gender equals from TBL employees. So look at that, we only get males. So execute this. Look at that, we only get male employees. Now out of the male employees, I want only the employees who has an age of 29. Then we can pass value for that parameter where age equals 29. Where age equal 29. And if we execute this, notice that we should get only one employee. Okay, if I execute this, notice that we should get only one employee. Okay, so here we made the stored procedure. We made the stored procedures parameters optional by specifying default values. All right, so here we made the stored procedures parameters optional by specifying default values. All right, okay. So how do you make a stored procedure parameter optional? Simply specifying default values. So okay, so how do you make a stored procedure parameters optional? Simply specify default values and here name and here name, email, age, gender and gender. We have made them optional, and in the where clause we are checking if the parameter value is null. So that if we don't supply a value, so that is if we don't supply a value for these parameters, we will get all the rows from the database table. And we have also tested this stored procedure, and we have also tested this stored procedure. Have a look at here. Now, now let's actually look at where we can use, now let's actually where now let's actually look at where we can use, you know a stored procedure like this, a stored procedure like this. Now I might have a web application, now I might have a web application where we want to allow the end user to be able to search employees, by name, email, age, and gender. So this form here can actually use that stored procedure. Let's quickly design a web form and then make use of that stored procedure. So here we need to create a project named web forms demo. So here what we need to do, let's open up Visual Studio 2022. Go to the, here we are going to Visual Studio 2022. Where is the Visual Studio 2022? Here it is. Open. So we need to create a project named web form demo. So here it is. Select this one, and from here ASP.NET Web Application, click it, go next, name your project web forms demo. So I have already select the location. You can select your choice of folder. So I'm going again show you that where is the, here it is. I selected this. Okay, click now, create. Now you select web form. So here it's taking time. Go to the folder structure, remove the unwanted things from here. I don't need this, so remove this. Okay, remove this. Remove this. Or you can select one by one like that. So I want to remove this. I want to remove this. I want to remove this. I want to remove this, this, and this should also be removed. So you need to remove these things. From here. Okay. And I also remove this one also. I will make a new web.config file. So go to and add new item. No, not this one. Add new item, application configuration file. What do we need? Application web configuration file. Okay, select it. I have selected. I have to write something here also. So let me close it right now, and I need to add a web form. So create a web form. So I'm going to add form here. Where is the web form? Again, search it. I think here it is. Select it as it is. Webform1.axpx. So I have an ASP.NET web application here. I have webform.axpx. So what you need to do now? You need to remove this div element from here. Okay. First of all, let's design this web form. So first of all, let's design this web form. So I need a table, and within that I need 1, 2, 3. I need 1, 2, 3, and 4 TDs. Okay. So let's go ahead and create a table, and let's set font family to Arial. So go ahead and create a table. And let's set font family to Arial. And let's also set border for this table. Border is 1 pixel solid black color. 1 pixel solid black color. Solid black color, all right. And then within table we need a tr, and then within table we need a tr. Okay, look at that. Look at that. The first tr, I want text search. I want text search employee, search employees. I want this text search employees. The first tr, I want this text search employees to be spanning across all the 4 TDs. So what is I'm going to do here is have 1 TD and set call span to 4. Call span to 4 and set call span to 4. And look, and then if you look at this, I also want, and look at this, and look at this, I also want, this line, this line, I also want, this line have, I also want this line here under search employees, and to achieve that, what I am going to do is, for this TD, I am going to set, so, and to achieve that, what I am going to do here is, for this TD, for this TD, I'm going to set a style, maybe something like border bottom. Border bottom. So for this TD, I am going to set a style, maybe something like border bottom to 1 pixel solid black, to 1 pixel solid black. So that we get that line, okay. And then what do we need here? We need text search employees, and let's wrap that inside a bold text. So search employees, and let's wrap that inside a bold text. So, and then let's create another TR, and let's create another TR. And within this second table row, and within this second table row, we need 4 TDs. We need in the second and within this second table row, we need 4 TDs. Okay. So let's include 4 TDs. So let's include 4 TDs. So let's include 4 TDs. So that is 1 TD, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. Within the first TD, let's include a bold tag. Let's include a bold tag, and then we need this text name. So first of all, we need to add bold tag, and then we need this text name, a text box, and then this text email, and then text box, in the respective TDs that you see here. So first is name, email, okay, it should not be here. Email, so first is name, and then within third TD we want maybe email. We need a text box to enter the name of the employee. We need a text box. We need a text box to enter the name of the employee. So let's quickly drag and drop a text box control. And we also need a text box within this TD. And we also need a text box within this TD. All right. Now let's make another table row, because we need another 4 TDs. where we can age, text box, gender, where we need where we can have age, text box, gender, and then a drop down list for gender. So copy this and let's paste it here. So copy this and let's paste it here. Why it is not? Control A, K and D. Okay. I need to format it here from here. What is going on? Okay, let me do it here. Due to line 13, it is not. Why this? Okay. So we have copied and pasted another 4 TDs here because we need age and gender drop down list. And then let's change this name meaningfuling. So the name text box, let's actually call it text name. This should be txt name text box. So the name text box, let's actually call it txt name. Email text box, let's call it txt email. txt email. And then in the second row, and then in the second row, and then in the second row, we want age and gender. We want age and gender. Age and gender. So this is going to be age, this is going to be gender. I have done that, age and gender. And maybe let's call this text box txt age. Text box txt age. And this one text gender, and this one's text gender. All right. Now for gender, actually we need a drop down list. Now for gender actually we need a drop down list, not a text box, control. We need a drop down list control, not a text box control. So let's drag and drop down list control here. So let's drag and drop down list here. Drop down list control here. And let's call this drop down list as DDL gender. DDL gender. DDN gender, and let's hard code the value. So if you look at gender, so if you look at gender, within our table TBL employee, we have male and female. So let's include two list item. So ASP list item text is going to be male. So simply you go to the get to its property and go to the collection, and here you can add what do you need right now. I need male. Click OK, and I need female. So you can do it like this. You need not to specify here value if you are using collection property collection by going to design and then use that collection. So you can also directly write here value and text, but I did not do that. So now what? Similarly, let's have another list item for female. We have already female. All right. But the other thing is, apart from male and female, we also need this. We also need this any gender. We also need this first list item, which is any gender, which says any gender. So let's add another list item, and I want that to be the first one text. Here is going to be any gender. So for that, again, go to the design and get to the property of this drop down list, and from collection, again click it. What I need to do, add what to need, any gender. So I want that to be the first one text. Here is going to be any gender, which the end user sees, but then the value is going to be -1, but then the value is going to be -1. This value we will use to check if the end user has selected anything within the drop down list. So -1 for any gender. All right. So add. Okay. Not this one. I need it again. I made a mistake here. Go to the source. This mail should be not here. It should be here. Okay. Use it wisely. You can also directly write it down. Okay. So if you go to the design, you will see the, okay. All right. We have specified the value for the any gender -1. We will use to check if the end user has selected anything within the drop down list. So -1 for any gender. All right. So at this point, if you look at the design, of our web form, we should have got this first TR, second TR, and third TR. Finally, we want another TR. Where we need this search button, and then another TR to hold the grid view control to display employees data. Okay. All right. So let's flip it to the source mode. So let's flip to the source mode. Now I want another TR here. Let's set the column span to 4, and within that we need a button control. So we want another TR. Let's set the column span to 4. And within that we need a button control, so drag and drop the button control, name it as BTN search. And maybe let's call this BTN search, and then text on this is going to be search. And then we need another TR, and then we need another TR, another TR where we can place a grid view control to display employees. Okay, so let's drag and drop grid view control. That should be under data. So go to the data tab. Here it is. Where is the grid view control? Grid view. Here it is. And maybe let's call this GV employees. Let's maybe call it GV employees. Grid view employees. Okay, so at this point we have the design for our we have designed for our web form. So when I click this button, that is when we need to write the code to invoke the stored procedure, then retrieve the data, bind it, and then retrieve the data, bind it to the grid view control. So first of all I am going to write a private function, so private void, and let's call this get data. So first of all I am actually going to write a private function. So private void, and let's call this get data. So this is the function which is going to execute the stored procedure and get the data and then bind it to the grid view control. All right. The first thing here is to import the required namespace. We need a system.data. We need system.data.sql client. System dot configuration, and we need system dot configuration. Okay, and in our web.config file, in our web.config file, what we need to do, and in our web.config file, I already have a connection string. The name of the connection string is dbcs. So copy and paste it here. So I have a connection string. Name connection string is dbcs, and it should be now 7, and that is pointing to my local database called sample7. Okay, and I am using integrated security. I am using integrated security. All right. So first we need to read that connection string from web.config file. So first we need to read connection string from web.config file, and to do that, string connection string connection string configuration manager dot connection string dot connection string of what is the name of our connection string? dbcs. dbcs database connection string. So I want the connection string. So I want the connection string. So once we have the connection string, we need to create a SQL connection object. So I am going to wrap the SQL connection object inside an using statement. Inside an using statement. So that it gets disposed of automatically. I don't have to close the connection explicitly. So new SQL connection new SQL connection we need to specify the connection string. We need to specify the connection string. So let's pass the connection string. We have passed already the connection string here. All right. Now the next step is to create our SQL command object. So SQL command cmd so SQL command object. So SQL command cmd equals new SQL command. Here nothing but a stored procedure, and what is the stored procedure name? sp search employees dot connection. And what is the name of our stored procedure? sp search employees. We already passed it here. So let's pass that to this SQL command object, and then we also need to specify the connection object that we are going to use to execute this command. Okay. Now this command is a stored procedure, so we need to tell that to the command object. So command dot command type. So command dot command dot command type equals command type dot stored procedure. Command type dot stored procedure. Okay. The next important step is to attach the parameters, to this command object. Now, if you look at this form, if you look at this form, these parameters could be optional. These parameter could be optional. So if there is no value for name, email, age, gender, if there is no value selected, or if the user has not typed anything into these text boxes, then there is no point in attaching these parameters to our stored procedure. Okay. So first of all, we need to check if there is some text in. So first of all, we need to check if there is some text in, let's say, for example, name text box. If the text is not equal to string, if, let's say, for example, if name text box if the text is not equal to string dot empty, if the text is not equal to string empty, string dot empty if the text is not equal to string dot empty, meaning there is something, only then go ahead, create a parameter and then attach that to the command object. So I am going to create a SQL parameter. I'm going to create a SQL parameter and maybe let's call this name parameter. Equals new SQL parameter. Equal new SQL parameter, and then we have to specify the name of the parameter. And then we have to specify the name of parameter, and then the value, and then the value for that. So basically I am going to use this overloaded function. Basically I am going to use this overloaded function overloaded version. So what is the name of the parameter? Name parameter is at name, and where is the value come from? It is coming it is going to come from txt name text box. So what is the name of the parameter? Name parameter is at name. And where is the value come from? It is going to come from txt name text box. Txt name text box. Okay, so we have the parameter here. We need to attach this to the command object. To the command object. So we have the command object is cmd.parameters.add. We will add our parameter object. Okay, name parameter. So this is the which I have here, and copy this and paste it here. Okay, in a similar fashion we need to attach parameters the rest of the parameters. So let's make a copy of this just to speed things up. So this one is for name. Let me copy and paste it. So this one is for name. This one is for name. Next is email. So if text txt email, so if txt email dot text, so if txt email dot text, if it is equal to string dot net is not equal to, so if txt email dot text is not equal to string dot empty, then let's call this maybe email parameter. Email parameter. Email parameter is equal to, what is the name of the parameter? It is called email. Name of the parameter, email. And where we are going, and where are we going to get the value from email text box. From email text box. Email text box, and let's add this to the command object, and let's add this to the command object. Okay, and next age, so if txt age dot text is not equal to string dot empty, then get the value from the txt box. So txt age dot txt is not equal to string dot empty, then get the value from that text box. Name of the parameter is going to be age. Name of the parameter, this should be age. Name of the parameter, age. And let's call this age parameter. And finally, drop down list for gender. So if you look, if you remember what is the default value that we have specified for gender, the default value is -1. So default for the value for gender is -1. So if the selected value is not -1, so if you remember what is the default value that we have specified for gender, the default value is -1. So if the selected value, is not -1, only then attach gender parameter to the command object. So if the selected value is not -1, only then attach gender parameter to the command object. So here we are going to check the drop down list selected value. So here we are going to check the drop down list selected value. So ddl gender dot ddl gender dot selected value is not equal to -1. If it is not equal to -1, then you know end user has either selected male or female. In that case, create a gender parameter. In that case, create a gender parameter. And where are we going to get the value from? We are going to get the value from drop down list. So ddl gender dot selected value. Name of the parameter gender. And where are we going to get the value from? We are going to get the value from drop down list. So ddl gender dot selected value. ddl gender dot selected value. Selected value should give us the value of the user has selected, and then finally we need to pass that to this method, and finally we need to pass this to that method. Similarly, here age parameter we have defined it. Age parameter, where is the age parameter? Okay, need to be passed. All right, so at this point we have created our SQL connection object. We have created our SQL connection object, prepared our command object, specify the command type, is stored procedure, and then we have associated all the parameters within the command object. All the parameters within the command object. The next step is to open the connection. So connection dot open. The next step is to open the connection. So connection dot open, and then execute the command. So command dot execute reader. So command dot execute reader, and then whatever this method is going to return, set that as the data source for our grid view control. So gv employees dot data source. So gv employees dot data source equals whatever we are going to get back from the database, and invoke data bind method, and invoke invoke data bind method. All right, so all of this code is present inside this. So all of this code is present inside this private function get data. So when the page is first loaded, so if it is not, I am, if it is initial get request, I mean if it is, so if it is not, I mean if it is initial get request, so if it is not a post back, meaning if it is the initial get request, so when the page is first loaded, so if it is not, if it is initial get request, so if it is not a post back, so if it is not a post back, meaning if it is the initial get request for this web form, go ahead and invoke get data function. Go ahead and invoke get data function. Even when I click the button, go ahead and invoke get data functions. Okay, with all these changes, let's go ahead and run this. With all these changes, let's go ahead and run this. Now we need to I understand that. Just uncomment this, comment this, and now run again. Save it. Now we need to optimize this code a little bit. Now we need to optimize this code a little bit, because there is lot of repeating code here. Look at this, there are all these lines. Look at it, all these lines are repeating. These all lines, look at it. Look at this, there are all these lines are repeating themselves. We will fix that in just a bit, but then first let's look at if our functionality works as expected. Look at this, when the web form loads first, look at this. What happened? Okay, something, we have got an error. What is the idea of that? GV employees, grid view control. Go to the grid view control. We have ID GV employees. It is correct. Then why it is giving an error? GV employees. What is giving an error? Okay, let me go to here. It is correct now. Then what is G and D? Gender. Gender is correct. Then what is happening here? Getting an error. Data source is an invalid type. Let me check once again it, line 58. GV employees dot data source dot. Okay. Here we have wrongly. It should be reader. Execute reader. Okay. Execute READER. Now save it and close that. Okay. Okay, now save it. We had not specified it here, so now save it and run it. So what is happening? GV employees control GV employees of type grid view must be placed inside a form tag with okay. Okay. See these silly mistakes. It should not be here. It should be here. Okay. Now save it and close that and run it once again. First, let's look at if our search functionality works as expected. Look at this. When the web form loads first, it displays all the employees. You can see it here, all the employees. So it displays all the employees. Now let's say I want only male employees. So male employees, search. Look at that, I only get male employees. If I want female, I get female employees. If I don't select any of the filter search, I get all employees. If I don't select any of the filters search, I get all employees. Okay. If I want male and I want employee whose age is maybe 35, if I want male and I want employees whose age is 35, Click search, look at that. Click search, look at that. Oh, don't we have an employee whose age is 35? Let's see. Let's see. Let's see. We don't have any male employee whose age is 35. That is the reason why we don't have any data. Now so let's see 33, click search. So let's see 33, click search. Look at that, I get one employee, all right. Now let's optimize this code a little more. Because I don't want this repeating code within our get data function. So let's have another function here, maybe, which says if you add this piece of code, you know what are the varying pieces here. The varying pieces are the name, the varying pieces are the name of the parameter, the control which contains the value. Okay, those are the only two things that are changing. So we can pass those as parameters, and obviously we also need to have a reference to the command object. So we will pass the command object name of the parameter and the control. So we will pass the command object name of the parameter and the controls that contains the value as parameter to a function, and within the function you can have these two lines. So let's quickly optimize this code. So let's actually write it here. So let's actually write it here. Maybe let's call it private void maybe attach parameters, and then we need to specify the command object. So SQL command maybe let's call it command, and the parameter name is string, So let's call it parameter name. So let's call it parameter name. So let's call it parameter name, and what else we need? We need controls that contains the value. Now here we cannot specify either text box or drop down list, because we have both of the controls, but I want to have only one parameter. So I'm going to use control here, because the text box and drop down list inherits from control class. So I can use control parameter, and then as an argument I can pass either a text box control or a drop down list control, and maybe let's call this control. And maybe let's call this control. So here what we are going to do is look at this. This control can either be a this control can either be a text box control or a drop down list control. So first I am going to check if control is text box, and so first I am going to check if control is text box, if control is text box, and if control is text box, what I am going to do, I am going to typecast that to text box. And then retrieve the text property. And then retrieve the text property and check if it is not equal to string.empty, and check if it is not equal to string.empty. Because only then we should attach the command object. I mean, we should attach the parameter to the command object. So if that is the case, so if that is the case, then to the command object, first of all we need to create the parameter. So SQL parameter, so SQL parameter, maybe let's call it parameter, equals new SQL parameter, equal new SQL parameter, and then we need to specify the name of the parameter. So where are we going to get the parameter? It is coming in as a parameter. So that is the name of the parameter. So that is the name of the parameter. We need to specify the name of the parameter. So where are we going to get the parameter? It is coming in as a parameter. So that is the name of the parameter. And where is the value coming from? Copy and paste it here. And where is the value coming from? The value is going to come from the control itself. So if it is a text box, typecast it to text box. So if it is text box, typecast it to text box. And retrieve the text. So we have the SQL parameter there. The next step is to attach this parameter with this command object. The next step is to attach the parameter to this command object. So command dot parameter dot command dot parameters dot add. Let's add our parameter object. Okay, so let's add our parameter object. Okay, so this piece of code here, you know, since we have this piece of code, we can get rid of all these line here. So we can get rid of all these line here. Okay, and instead invoke that function, so get rid of this line, and instead invoke that function. Okay, what is the function? Attach parameters. Attach parameter is the function. And then obviously we need to specify the command object. Which is nothing but CMD, and then the parameter name. So one of the parameter name is at name. And what is the control that is going to contain the parameter value? txt name, that is the text box. Txt name, that is the text box. Okay. In this similar fashion, we need to invoke that method for email, and the control that contains the value is txt email and age, and the control that contains the value is txt age. So copy, paste. So in this similar fashion, we need to invoke the method for email. txt, it should be txt. txt email and the control that contain the values and the control that contain the values txt email and age and the control that contain the value is txt age. All right, now we have another piece of code here left. Let's get rid of this as well. Now here we have another piece of code here left. Let's get rid of this as well. Now for gender, the control is a drop down list. So within our attach parameters function, I am going to have an else if block in our attach parameters function, else if block. I'm going to have an else if block here, and then we are going to check if control is drop down list. If control is drop down list, so we are going to check if control is drop down list. Then what we are going to do, we are going to typecast the control to be of type drop down list. Drop down list. Then what? And then we are going to check the selected value, and then we are going to check the selected value. If selected value is not equal to -1, if selected value is not equal to -1, if selected value is not equal to -1, that means the user has selected either male or female from the drop down list. Okay, if selected value is not equal to -1, that means the user has selected either male or female from the drop down list. In that case, what do we want to do? We want to do the same thing. So SQL parameter. the parameter equals to where are we going to get the parameter name? Where are we going to get the parameter name from? Again, that is coming into the function as a parameter. Parameter name, again, that is coming into the function as a parameter name, function as a parameter, and then the control here is drop down list. So typecast that so where are we going to get the parameter name from? Again, that is coming into this function. So copy this, and paste it here. And the control here is drop down list. So typecast that to drop down list. So typecast to drop down list, and the property is selected value, and the property is selected value. Okay, and we are adding that parameter to the parameter collection. So copy this, and paste it here. And we are adding that parameter to the parameter collection of the command object. Okay, now with this line, we can get rid of this code here. So delete this. Now with this line, we can get rid of this code here. Okay, and then let's invoke our function attach parameter. Attach parameters, command object, gender, command object, and what is the name of your parameter? Add gender. And where are you going to get the value from? DDL gender control. All right. So this is a bit better because we have got rid of that repeating code. Now a function is much smaller. Now a function is Now a function is much smaller. Okay, all right. So let's go ahead and run this once again and check if it is continues to work in the same fashion. Now let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and run this once again and check if it continued to work in the same way. So when the waveform first load, we should get all data. So when the waveform first load, we should get all data. But then if I say male, look at that, I get only male. But then if I say male, look at that, I get only male. Male employees. And 33H and 33H, and I get that. All right. All right. That's it for today. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.